Yeah, this is how my hair is going to be today. It's just too hot for me to do anything with it. Anyway, hi! By the way, I'm Kat and today I have a true crime case for you. I will also be doing my makeup at the same time and I also have a word in Romanian. So let's start with the word. The word for today is familie. Fa-mi-li-e. Familie. Well done, guys, you just said family. On 9th of December 2020, Gavin Smith's family died in their home in Elkview, West Virginia. The victims were 37-year-old Daniel Dale Long, 39-year-old Risa Mae Saunders, 12-year-old Gage Ripley, and 3-year-old Jameson Long. All 4 victims were shot multiple times. Gavin Smith was 16-year-old and he was the only survivor. But was he the survivor or the killer? It seems that in 2020 Gavin was really struggling with COVID lockdown and all the schools being shut, being stuck at home, and his parents not allowing him to leave the home because of the lockdown rules. Gavin had a girlfriend at the time called Rebecca Walker, but his parents didn't really agree with their relationship, so they were forbidden from seeing each other. However, they still secretly kept in touch through text messages and video chats. Gavin Smith was at the time living with his biological mother Risa, his stepfather Daniel, his brother Gage, and stepbrother Jameson, whilst Rebecca, his girlfriend, was living with her grandmother. Gavin's mother, Risa Mae Saunders, had been a single mother who worked really hard to raise her 3 sons. She was a strong and independent woman who was completely devoted to her children. Gavin's stepfather, Daniel Dale Long, was a loving and supportive father figure. He was a kind and gentle man who really loved his family. Gavin's brother, Gage Ripley, and Jameson Long were 2 young boys who had their whole lives ahead of them. Gage was bright and energetic, who loved to play sports, and Jameson was just a sweet and playful toddler who was only just starting to learn about the world. Gavin, the 16-year-old, had tried several times to run away from home, and each time when he would be picked up by the sheriff's office after running away, he would be really angry, according to his girlfriend Rebecca. Because of that anger, he would be talking about wanting to kill his family. Rebecca agreed, his girlfriend, even encouraging him that this would be a way for them to be together. So, in December 2020, according to Gavin's girlfriend, her grandmother was going out of town, and this gave her and Gavin the chance to be together. On the day that the shootings took place, Rebecca was on a video chat call with Gavin, who was at his house. He showed her a gun and a knife over the chat. He was planning to kill his mom and stepdad. Whilst on the video chat with him, Rebecca kept texting Gavin, telling him to hurry up and just do it to get it over with. Then, at some point during the video call, the screen went completely black. She couldn't see what Gavin did, but when he came back on the screen, he seemed panicked, nervous, and scared. And so Rebecca tried to get him to relax and told him that everything will be just fine. He had just killed his mother, stepfather, and his 12-year-old brother. At the time, Rebecca wanted Gavin to shoot his family because she felt as well that if he did it, they could be together. During the video call, Rebecca heard the baby crying after the shootings. It was Gavin's plan to kill his family, but Rebecca really didn't want him to shoot his baby brother, 3-year-old Jameson. So she thought that the baby was alive because she heard him crying on the call after the killings. But after hearing the baby crying in the background, Gavin returned and killed the baby as well. Jameson had been hiding under his crib. After Gavin executed his plan, he fled the house and hid at Rebecca's house as her grandmother had been out of town. Timothy Saunders, Risa's father, was the one who found the bodies 4 days after the murders on December 13, 2020. He went over the house because he couldn't get hold of any of them, so he just went to check and make sure that everybody was okay. But they were all shot in the head at close range. Deputies with the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office responded to a call about possible homicide victims in the home. It's not mentioned, but I assume that it was Timothy who called 911 and told the emergency dispatcher that he was related to the family who lived in the home and went to their home to check on them after being unable to reach any of them for several days. He said that he found the door to the home wide open, and when he went inside he saw 3 people dead from an act of violence. He then went to a house nearby, and that's when he called the police. When they arrived at the scene, the first responders discovered a 4th body inside the home. Gavin, who was the survivor/killer, was not there. But Gavin Smith was arrested the following day. His girlfriend was arrested as well in connection with the quadruple homicide, and they were charged with murder. Gavin was found hiding behind a dresser in a 3rd-floor room of a house on River Haven Road in Cledendine, which I assume it was the house that Rebecca lived in. When Gavin was found by law enforcement, the clothing he had on and those near him tested positive for blood. Further testing indicated that the blood was a match to those of his 2 brothers, 12-year-old Gage and 3-year-old Jameson. Facebook records between Gavin and Rebecca indicated that he was traveling from his home at 1384 Cemetery Hill Drive, Elkview, to River Haven Road. In those records, Gavin admitted to shooting the 3-year-old boy. Gavin was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and 1 count of using a firearm during the commission of a felony. But before we jump on to Gavin's trial, let's just talk a bit more about the victims in this case, because I really think that they are the most important. Risa Mae Saunders was born to Timothy Saunders and Charlotte Ridney Saunders on July 28, 1981 in Charleston, West Virginia. She was a 1999 graduate of Herbert Hoover High School in Elkview. She was a homemaker, but that meant that she was also a baker, a loving friend, the kisser of boo-boos, but her proudest and most loved job was that of being a mother. She enjoyed spending time with her family and caring for her children. She was kind and thoughtful. She enjoyed making others smile, and she loved hearing the laughter of her children and family. And she was really good at baking cakes. She would always make one for a celebration. In 2019, Risa married her husband Daniel Long. They only met a few years before, but Daniel swept her off her feet and they raised 3 young boys together. Born on November the 4th, 1983 in Cumberland, Daniel was the son of Doug Long and Susan Long. Dan was a graduate of Frankfort High School, class of 2002, and a United States Army veteran. He was formerly employed at North Branch Correctional Institution, Cumberland, and West Virginia Department of Corrections in Charleston as a correctional officer. He was a member of the Fort Ashby Lions Club. Daniel enjoyed swimming, he enjoyed cooking and being a dad and doing things with his children. Daniel also had another daughter, Tristin Shay Long, and several close family members. 12-year-old Gage Ripley was born on November 13, 2008 in Charleston, West Virginia. He enjoyed playing video games, archery, building forts, castles, and more with his Lego blocks. He loved helping others and he had a contagious smile. He enjoyed being outdoors, swimming, and spending time with his brothers, cousins, and friends. But just like his mom, he really loved to help bake, especially cookies. Gage was honored with a 240 club for archery for Elk Elementary Archery Club, but he also received many other awards for his talent in archery. 3-year-old Jameson Long was born to Risa and Daniel on September 18, 2017 in Charleston, West Virginia. Jameson enjoyed singing and dancing to silly songs. He liked watching Paw Patrol and building Lego forts and other buildings with his brother. He was an active little boy who loved making silly faces just to get giggles from others. Jameson could light up a room with his contagious smile and bright eyes. Gavin Smith was indicted in June 2022 for allegedly killing his mother, stepfather, and his 2 brothers in December 2020. Gavin was 16 years old at the time. In July 2022, 17-year-old Rebecca Walker, Gavin's then girlfriend, who helped him hide from authorities, pleaded guilty as an adult to 4 counts of accessory after the fact to first-degree murder. In exchange for her plea, 4 counts of first-degree murder were actually dismissed. Judge Ballard sentenced her to 10 years in a state prison, 2 years and 6 months for each count. She will stay in a juvenile facility until she turns 18, and when that happens, she will have a sentencing reconsideration hearing. She would then serve the remainder of her sentence in prison. I believe that she is actually due to have that hearing this month in June, and she has a projected release date listed as December 15, 2025. Her attorney, Robbie Long, claimed at her sentencing that Gavin told Rebecca about being abused at home and she wanted desperately to help him, but she also told doctors she didn't know how to help. Then, the 2 of them became delusional about their futures together. They confided in one another and they bonded with one another. Her lawyer also said that Rebecca had no criminal or juvenile record. She lost most of her belongings in the 2016 flood and also recently experienced the death of her mother. She was very close to her mother, and her father said that she didn't grieve like he thought she said. Then she met Gavin. A doctor who examined Rebecca wrote in a report that for her, who was a loner at school and had problems with interpersonal relationships, coupled with the loss of her mother, Gavin's promises would have seemed like a lifeline. Prosecutor Don Morris, however, rejected the idea that Gavin and Rebecca were delusional. They were just selfish, wanting to spend time together at any cost. He said that prosecutors looked at hundreds of social media posts. Quote, "The reason for the state entering this plea agreement more or less is that we believe the defendant here was manipulated to a great extent. But because of the nature of the proceeding, I cannot comment on the other party at this point." End of quote. Timothy Saunders told the court that Risa Saunders was his only daughter. He came to court with pictures of her and her children. He said them on the witness stand before he addressed Rebecca, saying that he was told she knew about the murders a month before they happened and he believed that she could have stopped them. Quote, "You could have prevented me from having to go to the graveyard just by calling one person. No warnings, no calls were made. So now I have lost my family and they've lost their lives. They did not deserve this to happen to them. My opinion is they can't get out of their grave. You shouldn't get out of jail." End of quote. Timothy said he also mourns the loss of his oldest grandson who was accused of the murders. He said he has nothing to look forward to because he has no family to do it. Because Gavin Smith was 16 years old at the time of the murders, he was in the juvenile court system, so his name was not released to the public. However, there was enough evidence for him to be tried as an adult. In March 2022, Judge Kenneth Ballard moved the case against Gavin Smith from juvenile to adult status. After more than 1 hour long hearing in Kanawha County Circuit Court. Testimony from 5 witnesses included 3 detectives from the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office and 2 witnesses from the West Virginia State Police Forensics Lab. Cameras and the media were not allowed in the courtroom until after Judge Ballard moved Gavin to adult status. The trial of Gavin Smith was a highly publicized one. He actually pleaded not guilty, of course, but Kanawha County jurors convicted him on 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder in the death of 4 members of his family. He was also found guilty on use or presentment of a firearm. He was found guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of his stepfather Daniel, his mother Risa, and his brother 3-year-old Jameson. He was found guilty of the lesser offense, second-degree murder in the deaths of his brother 12-year-old Gage.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Stunning new details revealed in court today as prosecutors continued calling witnesses in day 2 of the trial of a teenager accused of murdering 4 members of his family, including his 3-year-old little brother. Eyewitness News reporter Leslie Rubin joins us now, live here in the studio, with that new information about the moments leading up to and right after the shootings. Leslie.
Dave, no doubt the state's case is going to rely heavily on the testimony today from Gavin Smith's girlfriend at the time of the shootings. Her name is Rebecca Walker. She's in prison right now for helping him hide out after he shot and killed his family. Today, we learned she was encouraging him to go through with it so they could be together.
Rebecca, is it hard for you to be here today?
Yes, it is.
Her voice shaking and sometimes appearing confused by some of the questions she was being asked. 18-year-old Rebecca Walker revealing stunning new details about the day her then boyfriend Gavin Smith shot and killed his family.
I do want to say that I was not at his house at this time. I was on video chat with him while this was occurring. But I did encourage him by telling him to hurry up and do it.
Telling jurors she was encouraging him to kill them so they could be together, something their parents had forbidden.
Did you see the gun on the camera?
Yes.
And who had the gun in their hand?
Gavin did.
Did he also have a knife?
Yes.
Did Mr. Smith tell you what he was planning on doing with the gun and the knife?
He was planning with the gun. He was planning to kill his mom and his stepdad. But however, I can't exactly recall what was used with every single victim, but I do know that there was a gun and a knife involved with the victims.
Smith's mother, Risa Saunders, his stepfather, Daniel Long, and brothers Gage, who was 12, and Jameson, who was just 3, all shot in the head. The jury showed graphic and disturbing photos from inside the family's home on Cemetery Hill Drive in Elkview. Smith occasionally glanced up at the photos, but showed no emotions as they were on display.
Where did it appear that the 3-year-old was at the time the shot was fired?
It appears that he was under the bed.
She said Smith hid in the woods until it was dark and he snuck inside her grandmother's home in Clendenin, where he spent the night. They knew her grandmother was set to go out of town.
He was having a rough time at home, and he didn't like being told what to do. He didn't like being told, what he could and couldn't do. And that what was including me and him getting to spend time together, which is what me and him both wanted. And that was the reason basically why this happened.
Now, during opening statements yesterday, the defense said this simply was not a first-degree murder case, and they'd work to prove the state doesn't have the evidence to meet the criteria for the capital offense, which includes malice. They had alluded to abuse in the home and said Gavin was forced to be the primary caretaker of his 3-year-old little brother. The state is expected to wrap up its case tomorrow, and the defense will start calling witnesses. We don't know yet if Smith will testify in his own defense.
The prosecution argued that Gavin planned the murders in advance and he has shown no remorse for what he did. The defense argued that Gavin was mentally ill and he had been abused by his stepfather. During his trial, prosecutors alleged that Gavin killed his family because he wanted to be with his girlfriend at the time, Rebecca. Rebecca took the stand during the trial and said that she was on a video chat with him when he had a gun and a knife, and she encouraged him to kill his family. The defense acknowledged this but claimed that he was abused in the home, which had padlocks on the fridge. His defense lawyer said that he actually ran away several times and he was in a hopeless situation, but no one helped him. He said that Gavin was made to take care of his little brother around the clock. According to the testimony of Timothy Saunders, Gavin's grandfather, and Risa's father, Gavin had to earn his privileges, but they were not normal privileges like riding your bike to a friend's house. His defense also said that he felt trapped and hopeless and ran away on a regular basis, but no one listened to his cries for help. The defense attorney next turned to the testimony of Rebecca Walker. He said that her primary concern was to cooperate with the state for the state's version of the story. He said that she couldn't understand the simplest of questions from him about her own case. First Assistant Prosecutor Don Morris said, quote, "That little brother that he loved, that he showed to Rebecca on the camera, crawled under the bed to get away from his brother. His big brother raised the mattress up and shot him. He raised the mattress up and blew his little brother's brains out. Did his life suck? It might have sucked. COVID was going on." End of quote. And you know, guys, just a side note here, I wouldn't want to be in this prosecutor's shoes in a case like this, honestly. Seriously, it really breaks my heart. I can only imagine the poor baby being terrified, hiding under the bed, and Gavin just pulling that mattress and shooting at him. What did that poor baby do to Gavin? Kanawha County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney J.C. McCallum asked Judge Ballard to sentence Gavin Smith to the maximum on each count and to run the sentences consecutively. McCallum said that Gavin has continuously blamed others for his actions, including his girlfriend at the time, Rebecca, saying that she pressured him to kill his family so that they could be together, while on the video call with him during the shootings. The jury deliberated for around 2 hours before reaching their verdict.
Jury returned the verdict for Gavin Smith this morning after a 4-day trial. News Channel 3's Kim Rafferty was in the courtroom and joins us now with the details.
The jury found teenager Gavin Smith guilty for the deaths of his mother, stepfather, and 2 younger siblings in December of 2020. Gavin was tried as an adult, the jury confirming their decision today that Gavin Smith is guilty for the murders of his family when he was 16 years old.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Gavin Blaine Smith, guilty.
The family members were found dead at the home where they lived at the 1300 block of Cemetery Hill Drive in Elkview. Each victim was shot with a gun, according to police, and police said Smith was found hiding out in a home in Clendenin shortly after the murders. The victims were later identified as Daniel Dale Long, who was 37 years old, Risa Mae Saunders, who was 39 years old, Gage Ripley, who was 12 years old, and Jameson Long, who was just 3 years old.
Beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the first degree is contained in count 1 of the indictment. Count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant, Gavin Blaine Smith, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the first degree is contained in count 2 of the indictment.
The jury says Smith was also charged with second-degree murder.
Count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant, Gavin Blaine Smith, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the second degree.
Rebecca Walker, who was 17 and in a relationship with Smith at the time of the murders, took a plea agreement to 4 counts of accessory after the fact to the first-degree murder for her part in the incident. As part of that plea agreement, Rebecca Walker actually took the stand testifying against Smith.
Judge Kenneth Ballard called the murders a heinous crime during the sentencing. Quote, "You murdered your entire family in cold blood, Mr. Smith. You devised this plan to kill your family days and weeks in advance for the selfish reason of spending time with your girlfriend. You executed your mother and stepfather by shooting them in the head while they were asleep. Then you executed your two brothers by shooting them in the head, the youngest of which was hiding under his crib. Your actions can only be described as an act of pure evil. I find that you have no remorse for your actions." End of quote. In December of 2022, Gavin Smith was found guilty on all charges, which included 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and 1 count of using a firearm during the commission of a felony.
In December, Gavin Smith was found guilty of first-degree murder for the deaths of Daniel Long, Risa Saunders, and his 3-year-old brother, Jameson. Now, Smith made a quick apology when it was his turn to speak before Judge Kenneth Ballard.
This was a heinous crime. You murdered your entire family in cold blood, Mr. Smith. You devised this plan to kill your family days and weeks in advance for the selfish reason of spending time with your girlfriend. You executed your mother and stepfather by shooting them in the head while they were asleep. Then you executed your 2 brothers by shooting them in the head, the youngest which was hiding under his crib. Your actions can only be described as an act of pure evil. Evil. I find that you have 0 remorse for your actions. And in fact, the probation officer reports that he felt that you were justified in your actions. So you're here today asking for an alternate sentence leniency from this court. You shall not receive any.
For each count of first-degree murder, Gavin Smith received life sentences with mercy. Judge Kenneth Ballard said he was only granting mercy in this case because it's mandated by state law. Gavin is automatically eligible to see a parole board in 15 years because West Virginia law doesn't allow for juveniles to be sentenced to life in prison without mercy. Even though Gavin is now 18 years old and he was tried as an adult. For second-degree murder, he was sentenced to 40 years, and for using a firearm during the commission of a felony, he will spend 10 years in prison. Daniel Long's parents spoke during the sentencing hearing, saying that they adopted their son, Daniel, when he was 14 months old. Susan Long said that she's heartbroken by the loss of her grandchildren. Quote, "As the numbness took over my body, I tried to comprehend how someone could have so much hatred to eliminate 4 people, including his own flesh and blood, in such a violent way and cowardly way, especially the 3-year-old Jameson, who loved Gavin unconditionally." End of quote. During her victim impact statement, she said that she doesn't agree with the current law and she believes it's in the best interest of the world to have someone who killed 4 people, including a defenseless baby, not to be considered for parole. And just because he was 16 at the time doesn't really make any difference because he still took lives. Doug Long, Daniel's father, said, quote, "I never expected my life to be in such turmoil at this stage of my life. No one knows what life brings, and the situation surrounding this horrific murder was unimaginable. Nothing could prepare me for the sorrow and hurt inflicted on me and my family by this incident." End of quote. He also told the court in his victim impact statement that he was robbed of the pleasure that most families experience with children and grandchildren, and it's been replaced with tears and sorrow. The murders of Daniel Long, Risa Mae Saunders, Gage Ripley, and Jameson Long left a void in the lives of their loved ones, and they will be deeply missed. And really, guys, I am just completely heartbroken at this. It's just unbelievable. A 16-year-old to kill his entire family, and he even planned this. I mean, how does it go? You just wake up in the morning, every morning, and you know what your plan is, and you just go about your day as if nothing is going to happen, and then on this one day, you just decide, that's it. Today is the day. It's just beyond comprehension, really. Okay, fine, I get that, his parents didn't approve of his and his girlfriend's relationship. I get that he would target them. I still don't get it, obviously, but you know what I mean. But why his 12-year-old brother, and why on earth his 3-year-old brother? All of the brothers played together, they spent time together. His 3-year-old brother looked up to him, even his 12-year-old brother, because he was the oldest of them. Your younger siblings always look up to you. And that baby, I can't get that image out of my head. That baby was so scared that he hid under his bed to escape, and he couldn't. I do wonder though, if he wouldn't have cried, would Gavin have killed him? Why on earth would you do something like this? Thank you guys so much for staying with me in today's video. I know that this was a really hard one. Please do let me know what do you think of the case in the comment section down below. And for now, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!